Howdy, Connection Group leaders. Happy Thursday. I hope you're doing well. I am in here in the stairwell, and I'll explain to you why in just a second. But this Sunday ought to be awfully interesting because we are talking about sex. Sex and lust and even pornography. And if your head is turning a little bit red or your ears are changing colors, it's okay. That might be slightly uncomfortable for you. I hope not. But nonetheless, let me just say, if it's in the Bible, we talk about it. And the reason why we talk about it is because it is in the Bible. And because especially in this particular issue, and especially when it comes to our kids and our teenagers, if we do not talk to them about it, specifically sex, rest assured the world is absolutely talking to them about it. The world's not asking permission. So our students need to know why we talk about sexuality and why sex matters and who invented sex and all of that good stuff. It's why we do the big sex series that we do with our students. If you didn't know, every other year we do an 8-week course in the student ministry called Sex to the Max. And many of you are parents, you know you've already been through that with me and why we talk about it the way we do. But the idea is that sex is a gift, and that's how we ought to look at it. And we want students to experience the fullness of the gift that is sexuality. And the only way to do it is to follow God's direction. So with all that said, let's talk about this text here, 1 Corinthians. And actually this lesson, boy, it jumps around all over the place and covers some really, really good stuff. So number one, let me just encourage you, if you need to just follow, especially if you get kind of nervous talking about this, it's okay to read this lesson and then show them the texts that are brought up. Nonetheless, start in 1 Thessalonians. But I love this verse, so this set of verses. It only just tells you to go through verses 1 through 3. Keep going. Really read through like verse 10. I'm going to start at verse 3. This is the will of God, your sanctification. In other words, part of our sanctification deals with our sexuality. Put another way, if we are deviating from God's plan of what I would call Christian sexuality, we are absolutely affecting our sanctification. It's not that we're reversing it, but we're definitely not growing in our sanctification if we're deviating away from God's plan of sexuality. Keep going. So this is God's will for your life, your sanctification, that you abstain from sexual immorality. That word sexual immorality, there's porneia, covers the gauntlet. That's everything sexual outside of the sexuality of one man and one woman bound in holy matrimony. Everything else is out of bounds. So keep going. Sexual morality, that each one of you know how to control his or her body in holiness and honor. There's that self-control aspect. This is important. As part of sanctification, God growing that fruit of the Spirit in us, but self-control matters. Grow in sexuality. Each one of you control to own his own body in holiness and honor, not in passion of lust like the Gentiles who do not know God. There's this concept that I talk to about with our students. I use the phrase with them, don't be a sexual atheist. Like, what does that mean, a sexual atheist? There are lots of areas in our life, and you can, by the way, you can use this with other areas, but certainly when it comes to sexuality, there are lots of Christians that go, yeah, Jesus, I acknowledge you in all these areas, but when it comes to this sex thing, I'm just going to sort of do my own thing. I'm going to be a sexual atheist. He says, don't be like the Gentiles. The Gentiles do not acknowledge God. Gentiles here being unbelievers, right? So we're not talking Jews and Gentiles, talking believers and unbelievers. Unbelievers do not recognize God. They certainly don't recognize God and his standard of sexuality, and so they just ignore it entirely. So when we ignore God's standard for sexuality, we're being sexual atheists. So don't do that. So this is why we need to bring this up. Kids need to know God's standards, and we're going to lay those out pretty simple. Adults need to know God's standards, and adults need to know how to talk to their kids about this with their kids. And so that's why we're talking about this. And by the way, encourage your adults. If they ever need resources, I've got mountains of them, and I'm happy to give you all of them. I'd love to do that because they need to hear students need to heed their parents' voices more than they need to hear mine. Just because I'm talented at sharing it doesn't mean that my voice is bigger or louder. You are the loudest voice in your kids' lives, so have these conversations. That being said, let me just do one quick thing with you that I think matters greatly. When we talk about sexuality as a church, it is essential that we paint it with the picture that God intended, and it's this. Sex is a gift. It's not dirty. It's not ugly. It's not gross. It's not weird, although it certainly can be weird, right? It's a beautiful thing that God invented. Like Adam and Eve didn't suddenly discover this on their own and God was going, no, 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 don't put that there, right? Like this was God's idea and he meant it for good. Like this sounds funny. He is glorified. He is worshiped whenever we take this gift that he's given us within the realm of marriage and we use it within the realm. Like he's greatly pleased with that. Which again, might sound weird, but like we've got to paint it in this picture, right? So I like to use analogies and reference that. And one of my favorite analogies when it comes to sexuality is this: fire. Now, this is why I'm in the stairwell. In case I light something on fire accidentally, most everything in here is non-flammable, right? Fire. Fire is a great thing. It's a tool. If it's used properly, it's wonderful. So for instance, if I take one of my meat sticks and I cook it with some fire, it's awesome. Yeah, getting a little bit of toast on there. It's actually hot, yeah. Even better. Cold, it's great, even better. However, if I take a piece of paper and I light it on fire, that's a problem because this is not meant to be lit on fire. In fact, I can cause a lot of destruction. Now, is fire in and of itself a problem? Is it sinful? No, it's a tool. Now, sex is not just a tool. Sex, again, is a gift. But the idea is this: how you use sexuality matters dynamically. And used in the proper context, it becomes a sweetness. It's an enhancer to something beautiful that God's already given. Like marriage in and of itself is beautiful. Sexuality makes marriage even cooler, right? When used outside of marriage, it suddenly becomes dangerous. It becomes destructive. It becomes painful. It leaves scars and marks. Like that piece of paper that I just lit on fire, which, by the way, is still not on fire now. It'll never be the same. And this is what happens with us with sex. It doesn't make you marked forever in the sense that now you're no good. Avoid that. Don't say those things. That can be really problematic. Grace is real, man. We believe that with all our hearts, including grace towards people who sin sexually. In all of the sexual sin facets, grace is available, and God forgives, and God restores, and God changes lives. But nonetheless, sex marks us when we do it improperly. So let's be honest enough and bold enough and loving enough, not only with our kids, but with each other, to just tell each other the truth. Sex is a gift. What we do with it matters. God is glorified when we use it properly. And our lives are enhanced in beautiful ways when we do. So, guys, I love you. Again, if I can be any help with you at all, please don't hesitate to ask. I don't have it all mastered, but I've been doing this for a while. So, love you guys. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.